Two people look at the exact same setup, same chart, same information, same account size, same morning. One of them takes the trade, manages it well, and walks away a little better off than they were yesterday. The other hesitates, second guesses, either skips it entirely or fumbles the execution and walks away exactly the same person they were the day before. Nothing about the market was different for either of them, so what actually split them apart? Most people assume it's intelligence, or discipline, or some innate confidence one of them was simply born with and the other wasn't. Here's the uncomfortable part. None of those explain it well, because plenty of highly intelligent, highly disciplined people still end up in the second group, year after year, without ever figuring out why. So if it isn't intelligence and it isn't raw discipline, what is it? Keep that question open, because the answer is smaller, stranger, and far more useful than any of those, and we're coming back to it. Let's start with a distinction that sounds almost too simple to matter until you see what it actually predicts. Psychologist Bandura spent decades studying something he called self-efficacy, which is not the same thing as confidence, and the difference matters more than it sounds like it should. Confidence is a general feeling that things will probably go well. Self-efficacy is much narrower and much more useful. It's the specific belief that you, personally, through your own actions, can influence a particular outcome. Bandura's research found that this specific belief, not general optimism, not personality, is what predicts whether someone actually follows through under pressure or freezes. Here's why that distinction matters so much for anyone making decisions under uncertainty. Someone with low self-efficacy around a specific skill doesn't experience a losing trade as information. They experience it as confirmation. Confirmation that the outcome was never really in their hands to begin with, that the market did this to them, rather than something they can learn to navigate better. Someone with high self-efficacy in that same domain experiences the identical loss completely differently, not as proof they're powerless, but as data about one specific decision made by someone who still believes their next decision is within their own control. Same loss, same dollar amount, completely different internal event. And that internal event is what determines what happens on the very next trade. This is where it gets interesting, because you'd assume the fix is obvious. Just believe in yourself more, visualize success, picture the outcome you want vividly, and let that pull you toward it. It's the most common advice in this entire space, repeated constantly. And here's the part almost nobody wants to hear. It's not just unhelpful, research shows it can actively work against you. Psychologist Gabriele Oettingen ran a series of studies on exactly this, testing what happens when people vividly imagine achieving a goal versus when they imagine achieving it while also confronting the specific obstacle standing in their way. The results surprised a lot of people, including some of the researchers themselves. Pure positive fantasizing, imagining the win with no obstacle attached, consistently predicted lower effort and worse outcomes. The brain, it turns out, doesn't always distinguish cleanly between imagining a reward and actually experiencing it. Vividly picture yourself already successful, and some part of your motivational system quietly relaxes, as if the work is partly already done. What Oettingen found actually worked was almost the opposite of pure positive visualization. She called it mental contrasting. Picture the outcome you want, clearly and specifically, and then immediately picture the specific obstacle currently standing between you and it just as clearly. Not vague obstacles, the actual one. Held together in that order, this pairing did something pure fantasizing never did. It converted a wish into something the brain could treat as an actual plan, complete with a target and a named barrier to work around. Put these two findings together, and something clicks into place that explains our two traders far better than intelligence or discipline ever could. The person who walked away better off wasn't necessarily smarter or more disciplined in some general sense. They likely held a specific, narrow belief that their own decisions mattered for this exact kind of situation, and they'd probably pictured not just the win, but the specific thing likely to go wrong before they ever entered. The person who walked away unchanged wasn't lazy or unintelligent either. They were probably running on borrowed confidence with no obstacle attached to it, or no real belief that their actions mattered in this particular domain at all. So the outcome simply happened to them, rather than through them. Notice what this reframes about two habits that get treated as opposites in most trading advice, when they're actually the same mistake wearing different faces. Pure blind optimism, the kind that skips the obstacle entirely, and pure resignation, the kind that assumes nothing you do matters anyway, both leave you in the exact same place, reacting to outcomes instead of building a working relationship with your own decisions. The fix was never choosing between confidence and caution. It was pairing a specific belief in your own agency with a specific named obstacle every single time, rather than defaulting to either extreme. Why does this matter more the longer you're actually in this? Because both of these patterns compound. Someone who treats each result as evidence they can influence outcomes keeps refining a working relationship with their own decisions. Someone who treats each result as something that happens to them keeps confirming a story where their actions were never really the variable. Same market, same information. Two completely different compounding trajectories built entirely out of what each person silently believed about their own agency inside it. So if you've ever noticed that your best trading periods coincided with feeling like your decisions actually mattered, and your worst periods coincided with a kind of resigned, whatever happens, happens mindset, this is exactly why. And if that's landing right now, this is a good point to hit like and subscribe, because there's a specific, practical version of this shift coming up, and you're going to want it before your next session. So how do you actually build this, rather than just knowing about it? Bandura's own research is specific here, and it's not about affirmations or hype. Self-efficacy is built almost entirely through what he called mastery experiences. Small, specific, real instances where you took an action and it worked in that exact domain. Not general life wins, not irrelevant confidence, the narrow, specific kind. This is why journaling clean, well-executed trades matters far more than most people give it credit for. It isn't about tracking profit, it's manufacturing the exact evidence your brain needs to update the belief that your decisions are the variable that matters here. And this is where Oettingen's mental contrasting becomes a genuinely practical tool rather than an abstract concept. Before your next trade, don't just picture the win. Picture it specifically, and then immediately name the one thing most likely to derail it just as specifically. Not a vague fear, the actual concrete obstacle. Hesitating past your entry, moving your stop under pressure, sizing up after a win. Hold both together deliberately every time. You're not psyching yourself up, you're building the exact pairing her research found converts a wish into something your brain can actually act on. This pairing matters even more on the trades that don't go your way, which is usually where people abandon the practice first. Oettingen's research found the contrasting effect holds even when the obstacle actually shows up and wins. The value isn't in preventing every obstacle, it's in having already named it, so when it does appear, it registers as the expected variable you'd already accounted for, not a surprise that unravels the whole plan. Do this consistently, and something starts to shift that's hard to describe until you've felt it happen. Losses stop feeling like verdicts on whether you belong in this game at all, and start feeling like specific, narrow data about one decision made by someone who still believes their next decision to count. That shift, small as it sounds, is closer to the real dividing line between the two traders we started with than any difference in intelligence, luck, or raw discipline ever was. So think back to those two people staring at the exact same setup. It was never really about who was smarter or who had more willpower that particular morning. It was about which one of them walked in already believing their next decision was theirs to make, and which one had quietly stopped believing that a while ago without ever noticing the moment it happened. If this changed how you walk into your next trade, tell us in the comments which mastery experience you're going to start tracking this week. Hit like and subscribe for more of this. Thanks for watching.